Let's tune into a previous service that I mentioned I wanted to cover, where Mike goes into the subject of mental health.
First of all, the locks that cannot be opened. There are many human conditions for which there is no true remedy. Because mankind only thinks he has the answers, but he does not have the answers.
Aren't we all included in mankind? Oh, let's see.
Your therapist only talks like he knows something.
Your therapist only talks like he knows something. I can do that one better. Your senior pastor and CEO of the corporation only talks like he knows something. Depending on who he is, Mike, he's probably gone to school, to real secondary education, not the fake NTCC kind. And then you turn around and claim that you have a bachelor's in theology. You don't. Let me read a little something to you from Google. We all trust Google to some degree, right? I asked the question, do therapists have to go through formal training? This is, of course, just a broad question. Yes, to legally practice as a licensed therapist, individuals must go through extensive formal training, including a bachelor's degree, a master's or doctoral degree in counseling/psychology, thousands of hours of supervised clinical experience, and passing state licensing exams. This process generally takes 8 to 14 years to complete. Key components of formal therapist training, education, a master's degree, example, MA, MS, MSW, or doctorate, PhD, PsyD, psychology degree from an accredited institution is required for a license. Supervised experience. Candidates must complete on average 1,500 to 3,000 plus hours of supervised clinical work post-masters to obtain a full license. License exams. Passing national exams, example NCE, NCM, HCE, and state-specific jurisprudence exams is required. Regulation. Licensed professionals, LPC, LMFT, LCSW, are governed by state boards, which require adherence to ethical standards and continuing education. While some individuals might call themselves coaches or counselors without this training, practicing psychotherapy, diagnosing and treating mental health conditions without a license is illegal. That's very interesting. And the reason why Mike has to paint with a broad brush whenever this has been since Davis was around. They cannot have you think that a therapist has any answers. But is that what it's all about, really? It's definitely part of the dynamic, but is there more to it? Because here's a question that I have. They'll tell you, you pray for healing. If you don't get healed, for whatever reason, go to the doctor. Issues regarding mental health are not given that same encouragement. Why is that? We already know the connection between our mental and our physical health. It's how do you separate it? He has to separate it. Let's listen further to what he has to say and see what his ulterior motive might possibly be. This group is an insular society. Do they want you going outside of the group and talking to someone about your feelings, about your anxiety, about your fear, about your troubled mind? How many people in NTCC, just when I was in there, had episodes, major episodes, bipolar, and various other types of mental anguish? Why did we never hear over the pulpit or in classes? If you pray with a troubled mind and anxieties and all these things, and it doesn't get better, go talk to someone, because it's beyond our abilities. We are just men. We are just men telling you what the Word of God is. If you come to us and ask for prayer and it does not happen, your healing is not present, does not occur, please go get yourself some help. No. And if it was said to someone, I always want to leave an open door for the possibility that maybe there were some that were told on the sly, privately, go see someone, go get some help. But that is not what was taught. And that is not what you were supposed to teach out in the churches either. But they don't want people talking to anyone. And we'll figure out why in a little bit, maybe.
But he doesn't. And if you've been going to him at length, that tells you it never gave you a solution.
What does that length mean? And what is a solution supposed to look like? So, does he have in his mind, if you go for this long, and is there supposed to be like, okay, you're done. We figured it all out. Or is it something that takes time? Did it come on over time? It's sort of like when people try to find fast ways to lose weight. It took time to come on. It took bad habits and poor choices and all of that. It is absolutely not going to just require a quick solution once you realize that it was just a quick fix. And it's not going to be sustained. It's not going to be long lasting. That habits have to change. Choices have to change. It's the same thing with your mental health. Unless you were born with a problem, and if it wasn't caught in your youth, as an example, he's acting like it's a quick fix. You just write a prescription. You just tell someone, it's this, it's that, it's this. Because that's what he does. What is the appropriate length of time that he's talking about here? It's an unknown in the equation, so it cannot be solved. You have to have that other variable to solve the equation. And he hasn't done that because he's trying to act like Mr. Big with all the answers. He doesn't have them, and this is dangerous. It's coming across right off as if he believes the complicated inner workings of a person and all of their history and all of the context of their life that has brought them to a place where they might be experiencing a difficult time. He's saying, if you don't go and sit there and they just, throw out something real quick and diagnose you in a moment like he does, then what are they? I just mentioned what the qualifications are if you go to a therapist. And as with anything, if we've learned anything from these self-appointed people that tell you there's something, you can't just believe everything. I check everything now before I go to doctors and anyone. I check it out. We have to check it out. We have to check it out ourselves. Trust, but verify. For sure.
I could stand up here and give you one quick, simple solution, and it'll work.
The man with all the answers. All of them.
You don't have to come back over and over and get advice from the pastor.
What? For one thing, you do have to come back. You are required to be there all the time and come back for his very sage advice. Remember when he gave them a hard time recently? That clip is in YouTube somewhere about you should want his advice just because he says it's so. He has nothing to back it up. Not one thing. He has a fake bachelor's of theology degree. That's it. This is really, really something. What does one have to do with the other? It is a definite comparison of apples to oranges. A counselor or therapist to a self-appointed corporate man of God. You can't match what they do, what their qualifications are, or anything. So I don't know if there's one person or more than one person there that's going to a therapist or seeking other help. And let's explore this a little too. Two things I want to explore is, does the Bible not say there is safety in a multitude of counselors? In Proverbs 11:14 it says, where no counsel is, the people fall. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Proverbs 24:6, all KJV by the way. For by wise counsel thou shalt make thy war, and in multitude of counselors there is safety. There's nothing that says have one counselor. If we're going to, the NTCC loves to be back in the Old Testament. And so this is where this comes from. And look what happened to David, for example. Now, what's that guy's name? Ahithophel. He was a trusted counselor of King David. And so in 2 Samuel 16:23 it says, "And the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, way back when, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God." I don't know if anybody can have that said of them in this circle of people. He was one of the highest advisors to King David. But what happened when Absalom, David's son, wanted to take the throne? He built support among the people, right? And he declared himself king. How can he be king if his dad is still alive? Didn't matter to him. There he was doing it. Absalom, it says in 2 Samuel 15, sent for Ahithophel, the Gilonite, if that's how you pronounce it, David's counselor. And the conspiracy was strong. So Ahithophel, along with David's son, was going to betray him. He joined his rebellion. This wasn't a little thing. This was David's trusted advisor, as if inquiring at the oracle of God. He joined with Absalom, and David was forced to flee from Jerusalem. So Ahithophel gave Absalom great advice because he showed him how to make this takeover happen. So he advised Absalom to take David's concubines. This was, as far as Ahithophel was concerned, like, dude, you're no longer going to be David's. If he survives this, you're not going to be his high counselor anymore. I have news for you. So he was the top counselor. He decided to go with Absalom. So his problem wasn't that he was no longer wise. His problem was that he was no longer loyal. He was still brilliant, but it was for a different reason now. So what Ahithophel advised Absalom in 2 Samuel 17 was, he said, "Let me now choose out 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue after David this night. And I will come upon him while he is weary and weak-handed, and I will smite the king only." So I'm going to do it fast. I'm just going to kill David, avoid a whole big bloodbath, and just end this thing. So from a military point of view, it was fantastic. But from a loyal point of view, it stunk. So fortunately for David, God intervened by causing Absalom to reject Ahithophel's advice. And it said David had prayed, "O Lord, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness." And God answered that. Another advisor, Hushai, who was secretly loyal to David, gave Absalom different advice. Delay, hang back, get a big army together. This was a worse strategy. It was worse because it appealed to Absalom's pride. He was in the middle of wanting to take down his dad, the king. He wanted to do it with a flourish. He didn't want to go in and just have somebody slash him up and get out real quick. He wanted a thing. He wanted a whole thing. Ostentatious. All the way. 2 Samuel in 17 said, "For the Lord had appointed to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel." It was good counsel, man. It was good. It was solid. It was solid. But God caused it to be rejected. And the delay in trying to amass a group of men to go in and fight David, saved David's life. When Ahithophel, this high counselor, realized, oh man, he didn't take my advice, and Ahithophel was wise enough to see the writing on the wall. His plan was the only real chance of success. Just strike. Just get in there and do it fast. And the fact that it was rejected meant he knew David was going to get out of this alive, and he would win. And what happens to those who betray the king? They go bye-bye forever. So he went home and ended his life. 2 Samuel 17 says, and when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose and gat him home, and put his household in order, and hanged himself and died. Can you imagine knowing how wise you are? You are so wise. You gave the right advice. It wasn't taken. And if you're someone who believes in the King James Version of the Bible, then God is the one that caused that whole thing to go down the way it did. He just went home. Well, that's it for me, and ended his life. You know, when you're reading this story, you wonder, what was it about Ahithophel? I don't see anything right away about why he would betray him, because that to me seems, if you're a wise person, an unwise thing to do. But it shows something. It shows that people make decisions emotionally too. He was a wise man, and with wisdom, he just saw the thing as a military move, and boom, this is what you do. But what was the motivation for siding with Absalom? I don't know. I didn't find it right away, but he is related to Bathsheba, and he appears to be her grandfather. So David had committed adultery with Bathsheba, however you say it, and arranged the death of her husband Uriah. Remember that? That was so wicked, man. That was so wicked. And it could be something like that. Just a kind of like a personal grudge or grievance just gnawing away at him inside. That when the opportunity came, even though he was wise, even though he knew the only way to make this happen is to do it fast. He forgot all about, and it was said, what did it say about him? About the oracle of God. That is quite something. And the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the counsel, all of it, of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. Because with David, it was for his benefit. With Absalom, it was for his benefit, which was to get rid of David. I mean, this guy was one of the wisest counselors in the Bible that I could find, and he was a tragic figure. He parallels, it's just stands right out at you. Judas Iscariot wasn't known for being a wise counselor or an oracle of God, but he was the close companion of Christ on the earth, and he betrayed him tragically. Just tragic. So when it comes to a story like that, this wise man. Okay, so let's say Mike wants to prop himself up. He has many times. I am not stepping over any boundaries by saying that, because he has said it himself over the pulpit. So is there safety in one counselor? Is that what the Bible teaches? That you're automatically safe to follow just one wise guy? And really, someone can give very effective advice. But let's give Mike the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, you can give, and you have on occasion given effective advice, but you can do that and simultaneously be someone who is not morally trustworthy. You're not ethical. You're not. And Proverbs says safety comes from. Proverbs never says, never. I don't see it anywhere, where in the Old or New Testament, that safety comes from one wise counselor. I guess you have to leave, of course, Christ out of the picture for that one. But what it also doesn't mean is, now of course we've already spoken many times, and I'll keep banging that drum, but there was no corporate setup, business type model ever in the New Testament. And so when you have a corporation and you have someone at the head who has been given, who has been handed the corporation by his father-in-law. So it's all nepotism. Nepotism. Everyone on the board. No one there puts up a fuss. There are no checks and balances that way, is what I'm saying. So you may say, oh, we've got a multitude of counselors here. No, because they're going to toe the party line. The regime that's in power, that's the one they're going to just go along with. That's not safety for those who are looking for honest to goodness counsel from people who know what they're doing. They're qualified to help you. If you pray and something doesn't happen, you have to do something for yourself. You don't have to ask permission or anything. You don't have to look it up in the Bible. Am I doing the wrong thing? Is God upset with me? No. And look throughout the Bible and see that that's the case. It's easy to look it up. And I shared that story. I think that's outstanding example. You need that safety. Even King David needed safety and counselors. Why would we not? Us mere mortals. Mankind. David wasn't non-mortal. He was elevated. He was beloved. It says safety comes from multiple counselors. Because if you put your trust in one person to give you advice and wise counsel, what that wisdom does not protect against is the matter of the heart with that person, just like Ahithophel. So if there's bitterness or a personal motive to advise you a certain way, or revenge or pride, or just the hidden agenda, which isn't hidden in NTCC, they believe in their little society, if you move out of it, you are away from God, just by virtue of leaving their corporation. Safety, if you're going to be safe with advice and with receiving counsel, it comes from balance and not from receiving it from one voice. David relied on Ahithophel, and what happened when he defected? Then David was vulnerable. You're vulnerable if you just trust this one man, because the way the hierarchy works in NTCC is you're not allowed to have a multitude of counselors. In fact, if you start attending church there in Graham, someone invited you, someone loved you and cared about you, maybe they're friends with you. Once you're in the church and you start being a member, they're told back off. Back off. They're mine, man. Back off. Don't you say anything to them. You're going to mess up their salvation because God isn't strong enough to keep them. Okay? So I have to do it. I have to be the one. He has said that. He has said that in services recently. Can't rely on one. If it were a thing to rely on one, then it would be somewhere. It would encourage you somewhere to do that in the Bible. I want to see people have that ability to counterbalance things. And NTCC and other churches, they like to make it seem like there's this hierarchy, but there's also rules that go along with it. So if you are under my ministry, no one else can talk to you. And they look at it as a diss if you go speak to someone who's not in their church, but you can't let that dissuade you or stop you if you feel like you need to talk to someone and you need help. Maybe your questions are about being in this group. Well, guess what? They don't like that either. They don't. That, I think that's one of the main reasons. Because if you start talking to someone and you start talking about church, maybe you're going to tell them that in a happy way, in a joyful way, in a loving way. Maybe you want to win over your therapist to come to church with you. And they start asking questions. Oh, what was that like? Because a natural course of events, if you're in therapy, and the only one I'm familiar with was when I was a teenager and my mom was trying to fix me. And it was very difficult because you need to have the ability to speak freely and to be cautious because it's still a person you're talking to. It's still a human. But if you start telling them stuff like, oh yeah, I go to this church and we all look the same, we all have the same jargon, and you start describing things, maybe you're just going to bring up some things that are to you harmless. You're just going to answer questions honestly, and there is nothing wrong at all, no matter what this guy says, with going, at least trying it. Find someone who's really qualified and who has been doing it for some time. Before I continue, let's hear what else this sage, old, wise man has to say.
I could stand up here and give you one quick, simple solution, and it'll work. All you have to do is do what he told you from the Word of God, and you will be free. It's that simple. When people are not free, they do not want to be.
This is a lie from an awful, terrible, erroneous, lying place. That's where this was born. To say that, it's such manipulation to not give you that option to have a multitude of counselors. And nowhere did Jesus do away with that, did he? How about just be happy that people want to get themselves sorted out? How about encourage that? How about have compassion, an ounce? Show it. He can't because he doesn't have it within him to do that. What he has to say is anybody who wants to be free can be free. Anybody who wants to be healed can be healed. You don't need to go to that guy. You just come to me. Come to me, the senior pastor, the CEO of the church corp. It's me. He's using that me, I language. I'll tell you. I'll tell you right away what you need. And then just follow it. Me. Me. Come to me. Oh, wait. There's more because I don't know if it was this service or another one. He's really walking the line. I was going to say he's flirting with disaster, but I think the flirting stage is over. It's going to turn. It's turned. It has turned already. I'd be alarmed at some of his language. Very alarmed. I'm alarmed. I'm alarmed, and I expect it every service. But on the other hand, I also expect him to repent, and in weeping and gnashing of teeth and tearing his clothes apart in sorrow and anguish over the lies and things that he's done and said. That hasn't happened yet either. I hold out hope. It's just a wave of the hand, dismissive. He has nothing but contempt for people, because if you didn't have contempt, you would want to see them helped. I don't understand that. It's so unloving and uncaring. It's such a high level of it, such a concentrated level of it.
But thank God, if you want to be, you certainly can, and nothing can stop it. Mankind thinks he has the answer.
If by mankind you mean MK, mankind, Mike Keckle, that just fell in my lap. I'll take it. Okay, guys, I'm going to end right here for the first part. This is part 1 of mental health. And can I read something for you real quick? Proverbs 27:9. Ointment and perfume rejoice the heart. So doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. Hearty. Hearty. It's substantial. Ahithophel's counsel to David was wise and intelligent, spot on. But his heart wasn't aligned with David's well-being. His motives were possibly personal, emotional. This made him an unsafe counselor at that moment, despite the fact that his words were true. And so I like that proverb. I like that it says, the sweetness of a man's friend comes by hearty counsel. I like that this says, ointment and perfume rejoice the heart. So doth the sweetness of a man's friend by hearty counsel. A counselor, even in your friends. You'll know. You know when a friend cares for you and loves you and offers hearty, meaningful counsel, help. The why, it's not the wisdom that brings safety or that brings something you should welcome to you. It's the wisdom combined with where the heart is at. Because as we can see through the Bible, there are times when counsel was given, advice was given, seemed wise, but it was dangerous. And that kind of wisdom, intelligence, does not equal trustworthiness. It doesn't. Even if someone comes to you dressed as a minister of light and saying, you don't need to go there. If you've been there any length of time and they haven't given you a solution, you come to me. One time, I'll set you straight. You have to keep coming back. I'm not a chiropractor. So personal motive in NTCC is that it's a corporation in business to make money. That is it. That is it. Follow the money. You're only going to be able to follow it so far, though, because they're not transparent. They're not accountable. They're not above reproach. They don't even try to be. Safety comes from multiple, I would say, independent counselors that have no ties to the church, to the fellowship of believers you call the church if you're in NTCC, but that's anywhere. And safety does not come in relying on the powerful voice, the one that yells and screams, listen to me, listen to me. You should be listening to me. Come to me. I will give you rest. I believe those are just a couple of proverbs. I haven't even begun to hack around in the New Testament really, but they're there for a reason, specifically to protect people from being harmed by the influence of a single, self-professed, all-knowing counselor. When you have friends that you know are genuine, not the kind that go running to this one counselor, just talking with some people that you know love you, it brings healing to you during dark times. It brings refreshment. You feel cared for and safe and embraced. It's uplifting. You feel restored and encouraged. Anyway, that's what it should be. The multitude of counselors can come in all different shapes and sizes and backgrounds. But there's nothing wrong with seeking help for yourself mentally. There's not. And don't let anyone make you believe that you are wrong for doing that, or that it's against God, or that it's a lack of faith. If you're going to go to the doctor, if you're not healed for cancer or a broken bone or a bad back or whatever it is, you go to the doctor. So go get help. And this is the end of part 1, and we'll do part 2 next